is Friday, July 30th, and it's 2021, and I am still in Des Moines, Iowa, going to be taking off today to go up to northeastern Iowa, which is actually about, 3.5 hours away. And the humidity in large part has left, and now we have a beautiful weekend. Looking forward to speaking this weekend in Fort Atkinson, Iowa, actually on Saturday at 7 p.m. and then at 10:30 a.m. in Decorah, Iowa at the Christian Life Center. So looking forward to seeing some good turnouts at both locations. And then next Saturday, August the 7th, we'll be in Minneapolis, Minnesota, the Minneapolis Marriott West Hotel, and then that's at 7 p.m. start time next Saturday, August the 7th, and then August 21st in Chicago at the Chicago Marriott in Naperville, Illinois, and then September 25th, Greenville, South Carolina at the Faith Family Church, and then in October, looking to nail down the dates to come to Holiday, Florida, New Port Richey, Florida, and then October 31st coming to Houston, Texas at the Cool Church, and then November 5th and 6th in Waco, Texas at Walking in Freedom. So yesterday had to do a little bit of walking in the mall here in West Des Moines because it was so humid. It was a heat index of, I think it was 105 or 107, something like that. Very, very warm. So anyways, looking forward to a great weekend and welcome. I see Tina Kirkpatrick, I see Susie, I see Sue Ellis from Colorado on Facebook, and I know that we have some people on YouTube as well, and it's always fun. It's neat. It's like a competition between, and there's Tina Powers, going to be seeing Tina Powers this weekend, and her husband Jeremy. Looking forward to that. But it's fun watching both YouTube and Facebook broadcasts, and how, some days we see Facebook that has more viewers than YouTube, and then sometimes we have YouTube that has more viewers than Facebook. On Facebook, on my personal, I think we have over 6,500 people that are subscribers or whatever, followers, and then on YouTube, we have 4,930, so it's growing. We're seeing about almost about 10 a day now on YouTube that are subscribing, so getting closer to the 5,000 mark. So it's neat, getting the word out, getting the message out. So many people that have been taught things in church that aren't right, and it's sad, when we're taught that Christians cannot have demons, and that is completely false. It's rare to find a Christian that's not being tormented by demonic spirits in their thoughts, in their minds, and it comes out in their behavior. If you don't have the fruit of the Spirit, and if you practice such things that it talks about in Galatians 5:16 through 23, fruit of the flesh, that's all demonic. It says you're not going to heaven. So you can call yourself a Christian, that's all fine and dandy, but the Lord looks at the heart. He looks at the mind. He looks at the fruit. And if we're not healed and delivered, then we're going to be operating in a lot of wounds and anger and bitterness and selfishness and sexual impurity. So, topic of the day, when we stay a victim, we cannot overcome our demons. And I don't think I've ever talked about this before. And it's the Lord has been speaking to me this morning when I was working out. I have kind of a schedule, what I normally do. I tend to adhere to. I normally get up in the morning, drink some coffee, eat some Perfect bars or bananas, and then I go work out at the gym, and then do some walking and praying. And as I'm working out, as I'm praying, the Lord oftentimes will speak to me, and He will download some things to me about what I'm going to talk about, some things I never thought about. And so today, talking about the victim role that a lot of people struggle with. And it's true. The Lord spoke to me. He said, he goes, Nelson, people that stay in that victim mentality, they will not get delivered. and they will not see the fruit of the Spirit in their lives. They want to stay there. The demons want them to stay there. Poor, poor, pitiful me. And it was interesting, it's a subset of the Jezebel spirit. The Jezebel spirit is one of the major demonic spirits that affects most people. It's going to affect at least half the people in the world. The other half struggle more with the Ahab spirit. But the Jezebel spirit loves to act like they're a poor little innocent thing, poor little innocent victim. And then if you address the behavior that is evil, lying, deceit, sexual impurity, selfishness, pride, all that stuff, they love to go back to becoming a victim again. Oh my gosh, you have no idea all the bad things that I went through. Please feel sorry for me. Why is that the case? Well, think about it. If you feel sorry for someone, then you will overlook the bad behavior that they do. And so oftentimes you'll see those people all the time. You're going to see those people in the church. They come into the church and they're like, oh my gosh, when people hear their stories for the first time, yeah, I went through this abuse and that abuse and this abuse and that abuse. And they're like, oh, let's come alongside you and just put our hands around your shoulders and your backs and pat you on the backs and say, poor, poor little thing, you're a poor thing, you're just a poor little thing. And then what they don't understand is when they keep them there in that mentality, then the demonic spirits are able to stay, and they will speak to that person, and they will cause them to have the sympathy from other people in the church, and they will overlook the evil, bad behavior. And you can count on it that behind closed doors that they are being controlling, they are being manipulative, they are being mean to their spouse, to their children, and to other targeted people within the church. And but all they have to do is to go back to being a victim again. And then if you ever come against them, they're like, oh, and they start crying and turning on these crocodile tears to make you feel sorry for them again. So they play on the hearts of people who have hearts, who have a mercy heart, who are like, oh my gosh, you've been through so many bad things. I'm going to just love on you and give to you. And you see people I see it, on Facebook. You see it on people that have ministries where they'll put on a cry show. Oh, poor, I'm a poor little pitiful thing. And then when you start to know them, you're like, oh my gosh, they have an idol of a person that's ungodly. Let's say Marilyn Monroe, for example. Oh my gosh, she's my idol. She was hurt so much when she was growing up. You're like, yeah, she never got delivered. She had lots of sexual demonic spirits. You do not want to have a person that's ungodly to be your idol. You want to have someone like Jesus who's overcome. You want to have other people in the church. Joyce Meyer, I know, has overcome a lot of evil things. Now, she could have stayed in the victim mentality and poor, poor, pitiful me. She treated, I know, her husband really, really badly. And he left a lot, separated a lot. He went golfing all the time, and I understand that you don't want to stay around a person that's going to attack you all the time. But if she would have stayed in that victim mentality of poor, poor, pitiful me, then guess what? She would have never have overcome the enemy. She would have never been able to speak to other people to say, listen, you need to no longer stay in the mentality of being a victim. You need to choose to forgive those who hurt you. You need to command the demons that are tormenting you to be gone. Oftentimes I do sessions with couples. And if you're a person that was hurt a lot, wounded a lot, and you're basically operating in that spirit of Jezebel with those characteristics, then what will happen when I'm taking them through a session, those demonic spirits will want to act like they're just a poor little innocent victim, and that their spouse is the mean one. They're bad, and if you listen to just their side of the story, you'll be like, oh my gosh, their spouse is so horrible to them. Then you talk to the spouse, and oftentimes you get a whole different picture. You're like, wait a minute, sounds like they're pretty honest and transparent, saying the truth of things that they've done, but it sounds like what they're saying is that they're the victim, they're the Ahab, and the other person's the Jezebel. And so oftentimes you'll see that in a session, is that demonic spirit wants to stay in that victim mentality, to have you have, feeling sorry for them. It's one thing to have compassion for someone that's been hurt. I get that. I understand that. But if I am trying to get the person to come out of that, it may take them years. If they want to stay in that victim mentality, then they can. So anyway, I'll often see this too, is people who are born early, prematurely. Here's what happens, is they oftentimes do not bond, of course, with their mother or father. So the demonic spirits have legal rights at that point. The child feels alone. And then what will happen oftentimes is their parent will look at them as a poor, poor little baby. And as they grow up, they'll say, oh my gosh, my poor little baby was born early. They were born at 6 months or 7 months. And we've got to treat them like a little baby their whole life. And they love that. Who doesn't love that? Oh my gosh, all these people feel sorry for me. I'm just a little innocent thing. I could have died when I was 6 months old, 7 months old. I was in NICU, all this stuff. And we see this, I see this a lot with people that are born prematurely, where they have a victim mentality and they just eat it up. The demons in them love it. And as they get older, oftentimes their parents continue, oh, poor, poor little pitiful thing, and they talk about how it's just a miracle that they lived, but then they stay stuck in the poor, poor, pitiful victim mentality. And that demonic spirit continues to operate in them, and oftentimes, they'll develop into a Jezebel spirit, where they end up getting hurt or rejected from people because they go off on these people that don't cater to every single thing that they feel that they deserve. And so it's a self-entitlement spirit as well. And people, of course, enjoy the attention, they enjoy the sympathy that they get. So they love to continue to act like a victim. This allows the demons then to continue to speak to them and afflict them. Again, people who are hurt deeply, emotionally, physically, sexually, will usually have that victim mentality. And then they'll want to tell their story. Oh my gosh, and the demons will tell them that, oh, you are like the most pitiful, hurtful thing. You've gone through more than anyone's ever gone through. And they love that. And then they can tell that story again, and they can get more sympathy from people, especially those that are in the church. And oftentimes they parlay that into getting money. I want money. I need money. So they act like a poor little innocent thing. They'll post things on Facebook. They want sympathy, and they've got demons, and they're not healthy. And if you end up getting played by that spirit, then all you do is you enable it to continue to stay in that person. You need to speak the truth to them and say, stop it, knock it off. And oftentimes most of these people that feel like they're victims become the abusers in the relationships as they get older, as they become the adult. And they will initially speak out how much they were hurt, how much they were abused, to test a person to see if they're going to feel sorry for them. And if they do, then they know, oh my gosh, this is great. I got them. I can manipulate them because of their mercy heart, and I will continue to use that against them. And if they finally, the victim stands up and says, enough, I'm not going to look at you as a victim anymore. Then they're like, oh, and they start to cry, the crocodile tears. Oh, poor, poor, pitiful me. How could you dare hurt me? And then if you turn from them, you walk away, you separate, then they feel rejected. And they go off on you again, and they'll start to lie about you and treat you really, really horribly. So anyway, Jezebel loves to manipulate those with mercy hearts who feel sorry for them. The victim spirit joins in with the Jezebel spirit to get people to feel sorry for them so that they can then torment you, torment their spouse, torment other victims. And you would never think that they're evil because they have this voice of being a little innocent boy, a little innocent girl. Oftentimes you can hear that as they're talking. They talk like a little girl or a little boy. But then they can oftentimes switch and become a prideful person. And if you don't do what they want, they'll be very angry with you. So if anyone confronts them on this for doing things, in the Jezebel spirit or doing evil things, then they'll instantly turn back into the victim again. Oh, poor, poor little me, innocent me, and start crying. please feel sorry for me. So the victim spirit will tell you that you were hurt more than most people. So you can keep that sympathy going. It will tell you that you do not have demons, so that you will not pursue inner healing and deliverance, so that you can continue to get people to feel sorry for you, continue to get people to give you money, continue to get people to do whatever you want, to buy you things. You know, you'll feel that you're just a poor, poor, pitiful thing that would never hurt a fly, when in reality, you probably hurt people more than most, worse than others. You know, and oftentimes they will develop into having, if they've got the Jezebel spirit, again it says in Revelation 2, 18 to 23, that the Lord God does not want us to tolerate that spirit. It says, I will put Jezebel on a sick bed, and I will kill her children. So oftentimes these people will develop having sicknesses or diseases. You know, they may have STDs that they end up giving to other people because of that. They love the sympathy from people. So a lot of them will have physical sicknesses and diseases in their bodies. Many want an official diagnosis that they can use so that they can get paid money from the government and they won't have to work. You know, what a deal. That they can continue to say, well, I've been hurt more than anybody, and you better feel sorry for me. And if you don't, then I'm going to take an offense against you because you're just a mean, mean, mean person. That's what the demons will say. So, it was interesting this morning as I was, came out of the shower and was preparing to do the lesson. I asked the Lord, I'm like, Lord, I go, give me an example in the Bible of someone that had a victim spirit. And I heard the Lord speak to me and said it was the man at the Bethesda pool. And it was interesting, when I went to Israel, we got to visit that area. And I got to see where that was at in the pool. And I remember reading that, and in my mind, I was like, well, I go, that guy, he was a poor, poor, pitiful thing. He couldn't get there. Everybody would beat him, you know, to there. And so I Googled it. And I found an actual author that did talk about how that was the case. And I'm going to read, first of all, the Bible verse, John 5, 1. I'm going to go through 15 probably. But it says, after this, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now there is in Jerusalem by the sheep gate a pool, which is called in Hebrew Bethesda, having 5 porches. In these lay a great multitude of sick people, blind, lame, paralyzed, waiting for the moving of the water. For an angel went down at a certain time into the pool and stirred up the water. Then whoever stepped in first after the stirring of the water was made well of whatever disease he had. Now a certain man was there who had an infirmity 38 years. That's a long time. When Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he already had been in that condition a long time, he said to him, do you want to be made well? Do you want to be made well? So Jesus is not mincing any words here. Do you want to be made well? The sick man answered him, Sir, I have no man to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up. But while I am coming, another steps down before me. So again, how many times have you, maybe yourself, or talked to other people, that when you ask them a question, they play a card, the victim mentality card? You know, well, poor little pitiful me, I can't change my behavior and behave, you know, nicely because I've been hurt and abused so much. You know, please feel compassion and feel sorry for me. So let me go on. Jesus said to him, Rise, take up your bed and walk. And immediately the man was made well, took up his bed and walked. And that day was the Sabbath. The Jews therefore said to him who was cured, It is the Sabbath. It is not lawful for you to carry your bed. He answered them, He who made me well said to me, Take up your bed and walk. Then they asked him, Who is the man who said to you, Take up your bed and walk? But the one who was healed did not know who it was, for Jesus had withdrawn, a multitude being in that place. Afterward, Jesus found him in the temple and said to him, See, you've been made well. Sin no more. Sin no more, lest a worse thing come upon you. So apparently he was in sin. You know, a lot of times people think, well, gee, you know, I should be healed. I should go to these conferences and be healed. I should be healed of everything. Poor, poor, pitiful me. I'm a victim. And I know full well, being in deliverance ministry now, that many are sick and diseased because they have demons. You know, they've been hurt, they've been wounded, they have unforgiveness, they have anger, they feel like they're a victim, and of course they have pride, because pride always comes in. Well, pride can keep you from your healing. I've taught about that, how Naaman had leprosy. He had to humble himself when Elisha told him to go dip 7 times into the filthy, dirty Jordan River, which I've been to, and it is dirty. They have rats there, and he didn't want to do it, so he had to humble himself. So pride can keep us from our healing, but so can a victim mentality spirit. So he was in sin, you know, and I say that the Lord will oftentimes not be able to heal us because we need to deal with the pride, we need to deal with the demons, the victim mentality. We need to humble ourselves. We need to ask for forgiveness for our own sin. We need to repent for our pride. We need to choose to forgive others who have hurt us. We get rid of all of that stuff, and then we'll see the healings. So it's true. Those who have been wounded and hurt the deepest, that's part of the deal, is they need to own their own behavior. They need to be honest with the things that they have said and they have done. That's why a lot of people don't get completely healed or are still struggling with physical sickness and disease. So I'm going to read this verbatim from this guy. I don't know him, named Mark DeJesus. Isn't it interesting? I guess he wrote it October 4th, 2014. And it's about exposing the rejection or the mindset of being a victim. So here we go. It talks about, John writes, when Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he'd already been in that condition a long time, he said to him, "Do you want to be made well?" The first thing we can see here is that Jesus knew that this man did not get sick a week ago. This disease had gripped this man for most of his life. Again, it said in the Bible verse, 38 years. One thing Jesus could know is that someone who has a disease for a long time can end up wrapping their identity around their disease. And I'll stop right there. There's been people I know that when I had my healing room at a church in Indiana, when I first started out, there were people that they didn't want to get healed. Why? Because they were getting, is that a squirrel behind me? I think it is. Yeah, it's a squirrel. Squirrel! All right, but they didn't want it healed or delivered because they were getting paid for their disability from the government. They're like, oh my gosh, if I can't prove that I have a disability, I have to work. And I'm like, and that's a bad thing? Why is that a bad thing? Or like, and they wouldn't pursue inner healing and deliverance. They're like, nope, I don't want to get healed. Nope, don't want that. So Jesus asked him, do you want to be made well? So what comes against us can end up becoming a part of our identity if we are not discerning. Isn't that true? Yes. The question Jesus asked confronts the victim mindset right from the start. When you read this account, it seems as though Jesus is being a little uncaring, at least by today's standards. He doesn't ask for the man's story. You know, I'll stop there. Oftentimes, people love to share their story of being a victim. You have no idea how much I've been hurt, and it's been horrible. And again, when I take a person through inner healing and deliverance, I say, what are the worst things that ever happened to you? And they describe. And they're pretty bad things. You know, people getting raped when they're little kids, molested, having their parents treat them horribly, having their parents do the abuse. You know, horrible things, obviously. I have compassion for them. But part of the victim spirit loves to share. Wait till I share my testimony. It will have you in tears. And they get sympathy for that. So they love to share that. I've been around people personally and I've seen that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, here we go again. They're going to share the whole litany of all the bad things that happened to them. You know, when you get healed and you're delivered from that stuff, you can sum it up in like 1 or 2 sentences. Yep, I went through a bunch of crap. It was bad. But got healed, delivered, forgave, overcame, and now I'm great. Whereas if you're in the victim mindset, you want to share your story. You want to go on in depths for as many hours as you can. That's so true. Ah! It's hard for a person. You know, I do sessions with people all the time. And oftentimes I have to get to the point to say, listen, and it's true, it's just like Jesus. If Jesus was in front of you, I don't think I'd be doing much talking. Because if I want to be healed, I'd shut my mouth and say, hey, what do I need to do? And then listen and then do it. And so it's true. It's true. The demonic spirits basically want to take over the entire hour session and lament about all the things that went bad. You know, again, if you talk about all the bad things that happened to you over and over and over again, then, you know, it's, there needs to be more healing and deliverance. You know, because the victims love to talk about all the bad things that they went through. So, hello to Mindy on YouTube. It's a beautiful day outside here in West Des Moines. Oh my gosh, there's no humidity. I love it. Ah! After being in humidity like times 1,000, maybe I'm a victim. I want to talk about how bad that it was. Have to look at myself now. So, but there's something. I mean, obviously, if you can talk about what you've gone through and you can sum it up in a couple of sentences, and you don't have tears, you don't have anger and bitterness, you don't talk about it every day, and you're probably healed from it. But if you've still got tears, and you're like, oh, poor, poor, pitiful me, again, and I see people all the time, and they want to stay in that victim mentality. They want to have sympathy. Sympathy. You know, there's a difference between sympathy and empathy. But empathy is more of, you know what? Sorry that you went through that, but let's overcome it. Sympathy is, poor, poor, pitiful you. Oh my goodness. All these bad things that happened. I get it. There's some really bad things. I've heard the stories. And I do have compassion for people, obviously. So, anyway, Jesus gets right to the heart of the matter. Do you really want to be healed? So the sick man answered him and said, Sir, I have no man to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up. But while I am coming, another steps down before me. So Jesus, did he ask that? No, he did not. He just wanted a yes or no answer. Do you want to be healed? Yes or no? And I'll see that too with people I'm doing ministry with. They'll go on and on and on. And I'm like, I didn't ask for that. I asked a yes or no question to someone. Now, do you want to be made well? So victimization doesn't answer that oftentimes because it would draw a line in the sand of what would be required from that day forward. If he says, yes, he wants to be healed, then guess what? He's personally responsible from now on. If he says, no, he doesn't want to be healed, he looks like a fool to everyone. So instead, he gives a list of reasons why he was not able to get into the pool. Poor, poor, pitiful me. Yes, we've all gone through bad things. Some, I have to admit, way worse than others. Again, I have talked to a lot of people that have gone through way worse than I have. And I can't imagine. You know, I can't imagine having a father or mother treat me badly. I can't imagine what that would be like. You know, and then the child wants to be loved. So they go back to that parent hoping that maybe today they'll be loved. They'll have unconditional love. I can't imagine. You know, and I deal with people all the time that's oftentimes their number one pain. So I have to have compassion, and I do. And I'll empathize with them. And oftentimes the Lord, we get words. The person will get a word when we're doing a session. And the Lord will say, I'm so sorry that you went through that, so that they can hear from the Lord directly that he is sorry. But you can't stay on that, because what you have to get to the point of is seeing that the person that hurt you, that abused you, was also hurt. So you can choose to forgive them from your heart. If you don't forgive them from your heart and you still have the victim mentality, then you're going to still have anger and bitterness for them. You won't get delivered. All right, let me go on. All right, let's be honest. If he really wanted to be healed, he could pay someone. That's a good point, isn't it? He could pay someone or even bribe someone to get him into that pool. Again, I've been there personally. I got to take a tour of that place when I was in Israel. And I remember seeing it, and it's like, yeah, you got to have, it's like it's all concrete and stuff around there, and somebody has to, or there's maybe rocks, but you have to have someone that would get you closer to it if that's being stirred up. So, so he writes, hey buddy, next time the angel comes, I'll owe you $1,000 if you run and shove me into those waters. Give it all you got, and I'll pay you back when I get back on my feet. I'll get a job and earn plenty of money to make it worth your while. Anything to just get in the water. If I don't make it this month, then help me next time. Whatever it takes, get me in the water. Instead, he was so bound that his answer was the story. All of us, if not careful, can carry a story within us that is not the story God has given. The story we carry can be littered with chapters of unhealed pain, distorted perspectives. Remember, I talked about this yesterday, how those demons will cause us to have a false view of reality. We'll believe lies. The demons will convince us. And limited thinking. We can carry that story into many different situations, projecting it onto future encounters. The man had a chance to address his story and replace it with the story that Christ was bringing to him, a story of healing and wholeness. It is the same story God is bringing to us today. But we have to ask ourselves the same question. Do we really want to be healed? Do you want to be healed, both physically and emotionally? Again, I will tend to focus more on the emotional pain because there's a whole lot of that that's not been healed in people. You know, people want the physical healings. Sure, absolutely, I get that. But much of that's tied into, you gotta do your part. You gotta forgive people who hurt you. You want to stay in the victim mentality of all the abuse and all the anger and the bitterness, you will not get delivered. And you will not get healed physically. All right, let me go on. Let me go on. Okay, it says, again, this is coming from Mark De Jesus. I have sat down with many people who are looking for healing of a debilitating disease in their life. They came to me to see if we could get to the root of what may be making and keeping them sick. I've often had the uncomfortable conversation asking them, do you really want to be healed? They look back at me like I'm crazy. Of course, Mark, of course we want to be healed. That's ridiculous. Then I say, well, are you willing to give up your disability? Check. Hey, there you go. If you get healed and no longer have this disease, a moment of silence falls as they ponder how their disease had actually developed into a whole world of needed provisions that may be challenging to let go of. I'm not trying to knock getting financial or medical help. That is not the point here. I'm getting to the root of whether or not they really want to be healed. Because with healing comes a new lifestyle and an entirely new way of living. A lot of times people want the healing but don't want to embrace what a healed life looks like. This is what a victim promotes. Rescuing with very little personal participation. I'll speak to this. There's one guy I met. He was in Lafayette, Indiana. He had degenerative disc disease, spondylosis. Never heard of it before. And he had such pain in his back. He could not sleep well, ever. He would like sleep in a chair, a reclining chair, and he's always in pain. Horrible, horrible. He was going to go to the doctor to get an MRI on a Monday, and I saw him on a Saturday. I came to this conference for men, and I prayed for him. He got healed instantly. And he went and got the MRI, he was completely healed. Well then, guess what? He was able to start running outside. He would run and jog. He couldn't done that for years. And he actually started to, I think he became the drummer at the church. So he was able to sit down and play the drums and have the worship. So he was healed dramatically, you know, and he wanted whatever it took. He was in so much pain, you know. Now, I'm trying to think if he ever, I think he got a disability check, but he didn't need it anymore, and he didn't really care. He wanted to be healed more than he wanted to get the check, and then he was able to go get a job. So, all right, let me go on. Jesus heals the man, but the Bible doesn't say that he just healed him, but makes him whole. God is actually interested in all-around wholeness. For most, we think the story is over, we move on to the next event. But Jesus actually runs into him at the temple and gives him a very interesting instruction. Afterward, Jesus was making sure he understood that he was healed despite he was in sin, his sin issues. But that if he didn't watch out, that the sin issue could rise up again and he would be sicker than before. So that's why I tell people, listen, if you are not healed and delivered, you're going to hear a lot of demonic stuff. You're going to be in sexual sin, normally, oftentimes. You're going to have the fruit of the flesh. And you look at Galatians 5:16 through 20, and it talks about you're not going to heaven. You're not going to inherit the kingdom of God. If you're practicing being angry and mad and jealous and envious and getting into contentions and striving and fighting and arguing, you got demonic spirits. So it's more important you get healed and delivered so you can be set free from those demons, and then you actually will be saved. And then you'll be healed, as long as you continue to pursue having the fruit of the Spirit, loving people like Christ. So Jesus was making sure he understood that he was healed despite his sin issues, but that if he didn't watch out, then he would be sicker than before. So he said, yikes, that's a tough thing for most Christians to hear, because we hate the idea of disease being the result of sin issues. We avoid that subject at all costs, especially because of people who have taught on the subject with heavy condemnation and guilt. But we cannot negate that Jesus warned the man firmly. Guard this wellness you have been given. I talk about that to people too. I tell them, listen, if you got pride, that can keep you out of heaven. It got Satan kicked out of heaven. Pride. People that get hurt and wounded will always have pride. Why? Because the demons tell them, you can't trust anyone because your mom hurt you, your dad hurt you. You can't trust God. You better protect yourself. And the demons will be more than happy to speak to them in their mind and their thoughts for a long time, their whole lives, so that they can basically protect themselves and not listen to anyone else that might be a godly person. So it's true. So Mark says, I propose to you that one of the sin issues this man carried was that he saw all of his life as a victim. Hello to Lisa Perna from Facebook. Haven't seen you in years. Actually, it's probably hasn't been years, but haven't heard from you for a while. So hello, I'm in Des Moines, Iowa, getting ready to do some ministry this weekend. So propose to you that one of the sin issues that this man carried was that he saw all of his life as a victim, which gave no room for love, hope, and faith to operate fully in his life. When we live as victims, we carry and walk in unbelief, which denies the possibility of our situation being changed. We lose hope and believe the lie that we have no more options. Just like the man who was healed, we need to understand that we need to live as a victor, not as a victim. Oftentimes, part of our healing process involves renouncing the sin of a victim mindset. It's so true. Yes, we need to catch up. So, again, we're seeing, I still do personal sessions for people throughout the week. I do probably, 3 or 4, maybe 5. And of course I do ministry on the weekends, I do teachings during the day, and occasionally write blogs. So I'm busy, traveling a lot. But the experience that I learned from a person, how they needed healed from their soul wounds to get out of the victim mentality, was paramount to the change in the effectiveness and the anointing that's on my life personally and on the ministry now. I see much better results. I just had a session with a guy a couple days ago, and his wife reached out this morning and says, oh my gosh, for the first time in years now, he didn't have any seizures. Oh my gosh, he's sleeping through the night, and he's got energy throughout the day. So tremendous changes, taking people through inner healing, going back to the pains and the wounds, and truly forgiving those people from Jesus' perspective, because they get a word from Jesus. Either I'll get a word from them, or they'll hear from Jesus or see a vision, and they'll understand, oh my gosh, the reason why my dad or my mom or anyone else abused me, hurt me, was because they were also hurt. Now I can forgive. I choose to forgive them. I give them to the Lord. I don't have any more anger and bitterness. The demons have no more legal rights to torment me, so I command them to go to the pit. and I feel lighter. And people get healed. You know, and we take people through these wound healing, and it's huge, huge, as in the words of President Trump, who I declare will be president officially again, hopefully sooner than what people think. So anyways, it's huge. It's a game changer when we forgive people truly from our hearts. Because as long as you stay in the, oh my gosh, they were so horrible to me, you wouldn't believe the bad things they did to me. Yeah, I know. Jesus, what does he do? What does he talk about when he went through and people see him today? He shows them his wrist with the holes in them. He doesn't go in on and on and on. Oh my gosh, you won't believe all the bad things that happened. No, he forgave them. Father, forgive them. No, not what they do. Oh yeah, okay. Well, that's our model. You know, I get it. If you've got a ministry, you oftentimes do need to talk about the things you went through. You know, oftentimes I'll say this too, is people see a person, maybe they're an attractive person. Say that you're a female, you're very attractive. Oftentimes they will have other women that will be jealous of them because of the attractiveness, and they will just lie about them, manipulate them, hate on them, and be jealous, essentially. You know, and could be men that are sexually attracted that are not pure, obviously, but there are a lot of women that struggle because of being victimized themselves, and they'll oftentimes say, well, that person's never gone through anything. You know, they've never had any pain like I've gone through. And if you actually talk to the lady, they find out that, oh my gosh, they've been through worse things than I have. Oh my gosh. And then they finally get humbled and say, I am so sorry. I mean, and that's, I've heard of that, and I have seen that. Same thing with guys. You know, you can have, if a person's not healed of their wounds, they still see themselves as a victim, then they are very, very insecure and very, very jealous of other people. And they get to know these people that have gone through probably more than they have. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. And then we can command the demons to go, the jealousy and so forth. But we have to recognize, we have to look at ourselves. I'm going to say this too. You have to look at yourself in the mirror, because there are so many people that look at themselves as a victim that will say all the bad things. They say that their spouse has that's done to them. And they see them through these glasses that are not the truth. And oftentimes it's because of them and how they've treated the spouse horribly and harshly. They don't even see the things that they've done. So that's why we need to look at ourselves first in the mirror and say, Father, is there anything in me? And focus on yourself getting healed and delivered, not what other people have done to you. I get it. You know, that's part of my business, quote unquote, ministry, is helping people recognize and look in the mirror at themselves so they can choose to forgive. And when you can do that, then you don't look at yourself as a victim anymore. Yeah, you went through what you went through, and maybe it was horrible, maybe it was bad, but pain is pain. It's true. Pain is pain. So, all right. Well, I'm going to get ready to pack up, and it's moving day. Again, it's like I live in a hotel for 3 days here, 4 days there, and then it's time to move, go on to another place, and live there for a couple of days. So, anyways, don't be a victim anymore. That can be stopping a lot of people from, again, being healed and delivered. And isn't it interesting how Jesus said that? Do you want to be healed? It's hard sometimes to speak the truth to somebody that has been wounded a lot. And oftentimes I'm very patient when I do a session with somebody, and it may take them more than one session to get a lot of stuff broken off, because they're still looking at themselves as poor, pitiful me. But you see a lot of people with Jezebel spirit that they just, oh, poor, pitiful me. I've been hurt and wounded so bad. I'm like, yeah, you have, but you need to get rid of that. You need to forgive the people and overcome, be an overcomer. So, all right, this weekend again, I'll be in Fort Atkinson, Iowa on Saturday, and then Sunday in Decorah, Iowa. Then next weekend coming to Minneapolis Marriott West. Next Saturday is 7th of August, and then the 21st of August, Chicago. So come on to Chicago. We always have the greatest turnouts of all the Marriott events in Chicago. And It's in a safe place in Naperville. Well, I mean, my gosh, how many people are getting murdered in Chicago? Chicago needs deliverance more than most cities. That's the answer to all this violence and all this crap going on with people, is deliverance, inner healing and deliverance. And then the people change their personalities. They're nice to each other. They can own their stuff. So, all right, I'm gonna let you guys go.